G'day everyone, this is Andrew Price here from BlenderGuru.com, coming at you today with another Blender video tutorial, this time teaching you how to recreate the logo to the fastest selling strategy game of all time, Starcraft 2. So for those of you who don't know, the game came out approximately 3 weeks ago, and it sold 1.5 million copies in the first 2 days, breaking all records. So it's been hugely popular. So it's not surprising that this was the most requested tutorial for this month. So I asked you guys at the beginning of the month what things related to topography you wanted to see, and a huge number of you asked me to create a tutorial on how to do the StarCraft 2 logo. So there you go. Now, first of all, a little bit of a story. For those of you who don't know, I'm actually based in South Korea at the moment. I never realized this, but the StarCraft franchise is hugely popular in Korea. Like, absolutely massive. Like, for example, they have a TV show here that they play at like prime time, 8 p.m. at night, and it's just people playing the original StarCraft, right? Like at tournaments, and like they discuss tactics and things like that. Like, they are insane about it. Like they say that the #1 religion here is Christianity, but I'd be willing to bet that there's probably more copies of StarCraft here than actual Bibles. I mean, they are insane about it, right? So you can imagine that with the release of the sequel, they would have been heavily marketing this game here, and yeah, they were. Aside from Korean Airlines actually painting their planes with the StarCraft 2 advertisement on the side, you've also got like almost every bus shelter, the sides of buildings, billboards. It's everywhere. One that I thought was kind of cool, my girlfriend and I went to go and see Toy Story 3 the other day at a cinema here in Seoul. And we walked in there, and they'd actually taken out like the foyer for this cinema and replaced it with this huge StarCraft 2 display. So they had like a big projector there showing the trailer, and they also had like heaps of PCs there where you can actually sit down and play the game for free. And so they had like Blizzard employees there walking around helping people, and yeah, it was like, I was blown away by what they were doing there. But anyway, so my girlfriend went to the bathroom, and I thought to kill some time, I'd sit down and try the game for the first time, just to see what all the fuss was about. So anyway, I sat down and started experimenting with the controls, and figured out it was pretty similar to Blender, the navigation controls, which was quite funny. Anyway, so I sort of worked out which was my army, and I told them to start destroying a base that I found. So they were all shooting it, and I was going around, and all the buildings were being destroyed, and I was really excited. I was doing really well, and then my girlfriend came back and told me that I had in fact been destroying my own base. So that was a little bit embarrassing when your girlfriend has to give you advice on a video game. But there you go. That's my experience with the actual game itself. But there you go. So let's get on with the tutorial now. And first of all, we're going to take a look at the actual official logo. Alright, so we're looking now at the official logo that was created by Blizzard Entertainment. Just thought I'd show you a few things that make up the logo before we begin. So if we just zoom in here, let's just take a closer look at what makes up the scene. So the logo itself, it uses a font which is sort of like a futuristic, stylized sci-fi sort of font, sort of hinting at the game's I suppose space theme, which is kind of cool. The letters themselves have got like sort of scratches and grunge marks and things like that, sort of hinting that the game is battle themed. So it's got like a battle, scratch and metallic-y look to it, which is kind of cool. So the text itself, we're not going to be using a font to create it. We're going to have to hand model it to make it look exactly perfect. Because basically we've got this beveled edge here. If you see, if I just paint over it like this, so to get that beveled edge, we will need to hand model each of the letters, but I'll show you how to do that in a second. Now, as for the lighting is fairly simple once you sort of come to grips with it. But the primary lighting is made up of this yellow light, which is sort of coming from the top down onto the tops of these letters here. You've got your blue glow coming from the bottom, and you've also got a blue glow, if we zoom in here, that's sort of coming from behind the letters. So for that, I'm going to show you a trick to get that sort of effect on the text, because it is a bit tricky to do just with lighting. But we've also got blue lighting basically coming from both sides of the logo here as well. So that sort of makes up that. Now in the background, we've also got these 2 digits here, which sort of make up the. It looks like a smiley face. There we go. We've got these 2 digits here, which are behind the text. So we're going to be adding lights specifically for those letters and isolating it from the rest of the text so that the lighting for these 2 digits here don't affect the rest of the text. Again, I'll show you how to do that. Now in the background here, we've also got this sort of smoky effect sort of blasting from behind the text. And I'll show you how to create that with procedural textures, as well as a little bit of compositing to get that glow effect. But there you go. So that basically makes up the basis of the official Starcraft logo. So now we know what we're in for. So let's get into the tutorial. Alright, so let's start by modeling the letters. So with the default scene, go ahead and delete the default cube and the default lamp. Now what we're going to do is add a background image, which we're basically going to be taking the official StarCraft 2 logo and applying it to the background, and now we're going to be tracing over it. So once we've done that, I'm going to turn the transparency down to 0 so that we've got the full logo showing up in the background there. So what I'm going to do now is add a plane. I'm going to scale that down, keeping it in wire mode, by the way, so you can see through the object. And I'm just going to scale it down on this this S here, like so. Let me just like that. Okay, and what I'm going to do is basically just start extruding this shape just along the surface of the letter S. Okay, just like that. So it doesn't have to be perfect. And when we get to this point here, we're just going to leave that there because we're going to do a loop cut later on. Now for this part, what we need to do to go around this is we're going to extrude it a little bit and then move this vertex along like so. Move that one up as well. So the modeling of the letters, as I explained at the beginning, it is best to hand model it. There is a StarCraft 2 font out there that you can use. I don't recommend using it because if you're trying to get the exact look of the logo, then you're not going to get that with the font because you're not going to be able to do these nice beveled edges here. So I'd stay clear of the font and yeah, stick with the hand modeling of the letters like this. Alright, so we've done that little I don't know, what do you call it, edge there. And now we're just moving that vertex along to the end point like this. Alright, so that's looking fairly good so far. Alright, so now what we're going to do is create this this beveled edge here that's sort of raised up from the rest of it. So to do that, we're going to press Control R, and you get this purple line that'll appear. And we're just going to drag this along just so that it matches, say, there, just off this this beveled edge here along that one. And now we're just going to move these vertices, that's right, I always get them confused, so that it lines up with that. Now if we move that one around like that, it's going to be disproportionate. See how that doesn't match the line, so it's sort of crooked now. One thing I found out which is kind of cool, if you select that center vertex there, then press Shift S, then select cursor to selected, and then pivot point 3D cursor. If we now select that vertex there and then scale it down, then you can see that it pulls across there, and you still got that perfect line there. So that was it's a little cool thing that I thought I'd share with you guys. So I'm just going to do that for all of these like that, and that way you don't have to worry about you know, messing up your mesh or anything like that. by moving things around. So it's always going to be perfect and line up the way it should. Alright, we'll just do this little beveled edge there, like so. Alright, so now obviously we're going to do another loop cut, and that is going to be for the other side. Like that, there we go. And we're going to do the same for this one here. And then this one scaling inwards, just so that it lines up. Oh, what happened there? There we go. Alright, so just about finished there. Okay, so now that's done, we're going to move this vertex along there so that it makes up this this endpoint there, like so. And this one we're going to move up, again, keeping it so that the lines stay the way they should. Like that. And then for this endpoint, now what I'm going to do is select these end 4 vertices and press F to form a face. And that one could probably be stretched out a little bit further just so it lines up a bit better. And same for this one as well. Okay, pretty good. And let's do the same for this one. There you go. So that's it's looking pretty good anyway. Alright, so now we've mapped out where all the vertices should be. Now it's just a matter of selecting the faces, going into face select mode, then holding down Alt. I'm going to middle click one of those edges there, and that's going to select all of those those faces along there, deselecting the 2 endpoints there. Now if I just rotate around it a little bit, press G, and then move it along the Z axis like so, then you've got a nice raised text there basically. Alright, so you can see here we've got this jagged edge there. We're going to enable smooth shading. And that's sort of okay, but it's now just looking really weird. You've still got these weird smooth shapes appearing. So what we're going to do is we're going to enable subsurf division. Forgot what it's called. There we go. And I'm going to turn the amount of subsurf division up to 4. Next thing I'm going to do is take a drink of water. There we go. A bit better. Sorry. Okay, voice is not good today. Alright, and now what we're going to do is, let's switch to, let's say we're going to vertices mode. And we're going to turn up the median crease. Actually, no, sorry, we're going to go into edge select mode. First of all, just select those edges there like that, and then turn the median crease up to 1. And you do that by bringing up the N key. Someone was asking the other day where the crease is. It's now there in the, I don't know what that little toolbar is, but the N toolbar, whatever you want to call it. Alright, so now we've got these, this smooth shape here, which isn't what we want. We want it to be very sharp looking, very nice and futuristic, and battle-y. So to get that, what we're going to do is, holding down Alt, we're going to select that end edge there, move it downwards along the Z axis, like that. So if you look at it from the top, you're not going to see that extra layer underneath it. And then if we just select both of those edges there, go into vertice select mode, and then again turn that median crease all the way up, you've then got some nice powerful striking edges there, which is sort of the effect we want. You may have to turn off, I think, some of these ones here, just where the S, sort of that bend shape is, otherwise you'll get that sort of nasty looking effect that was just there then. So there we go, we fixed that quite easily. I might do the same for these ones here as well. Just bear with me whilst I do this. So selecting all of them and then just turning the creases down. So when you're working in subdivision mode, you do play a lot with creases and things like that, just to get the object looking right. But yeah, it does pay off in the end. Now for these end ones here, where there's supposed to be a sharp beveled edge, again we're going to turn up the median crease on those, and then you got that nice edge there. And we're going to do another one just here, turn that one up, and that one up there as well. Okay, so that is that's pretty much it for the S shape. That's now it's all in place. We've got some. You can see that the subsurf doesn't always do it proportionally the way it should. I think what I'm going to do is just move this vertex just upwards a little bit. Maybe this one here as well, just to sort of get a more smoothed off edge and looking a bit better. There we go. So that's looking a little bit better there. And you're gonna have to fix up you know, some little errors, things like that. Experiment by adding. You can see you've got this sort of smoothy looking edge there. If you add another loop cut, that fixes that. And there you go. So so that is the first part of the S. Now you've got the rest of the font to do. Now if I did a whole tutorial on that, I think it'd probably go for like 2 hours. I think the first time I did it, it did take me a while, took maybe 3 or 4 hours, I think, but I was going like full narky on it, trying to get it looking absolutely perfect. But yeah, it does take a little bit of time, but it's really good modeling practice. So if you want to get good at modeling, tracing images like this is really a good way to go about it. So I'm not going to show you how to do every letter. That's the first part done. Let's jump now to the finished model result. Alright, so this is what the text should look like once you've finished modeling everything. So I've sort of gone for like a sort of a high detail sort of look, turned up the subdivision a lot. You will notice though that not every object has subdivision. I've turned it off for like these ones that have straight edges. So it really depends on the lettering as to whether or not you enable it. Some of them have got beveled applied, some of them don't. So yeah, just play around with the different modifiers, things like that, just to try and get the text looking as close as you can to the original like that. But yeah, it doesn't matter if it doesn't look perfect, but there you go. So what we're going to do now is move on to the lighting part of the tutorial. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to move the camera directly above the logo just so we can preview the changes we're making. So the best way to do that is to go into top view mode and then press Ctrl-Alt-0, and that will snap the camera directly to that position. If we move that out. Now one thing to note here, just as a quick tip, if I just zoom in here, you'll notice that the perspective of the camera has sort of made that edge there not really that visible. So it's basically being viewed as like a proper scene. Now as I said, with the original logo, it is pretty much 2D. Everything's flat onto the camera. So if we select, with the camera selected, if we go to the camera options and enable orthographic, then that'll make everything basically look 2D and basically front on to the camera. So that's a sort of a quick tip there. So that's what it looks like with orthographic, perspective, orthographic, perspective, orthographic. There you go. Just a quick tip for people that are creating logos and things like that. Alright, so in top view mode, what I'm going to do, first of all, I'm going to move these two big digits here that are in the background. I'm going to move that onto a separate layer because we want to make changes. We want to make different sort of lighting setups for those big numbers in the background than what we are for the main text. So first thing I'm going to try and do is get that orange glow look to the tops of the letters. So to do that, I'm going to add an area lamp. Okay, I'm just going to position it just in line with the text there and rotate it by 90 degrees. Now in the lamp options, what I'm going to enable is I'm going to change it from square to rectangle. And what that will enable me to do is alter the size of one scaled axis of the lamp, if that makes sense. So if I set this to say 8, we can sort of get that value looking like that. I might just increase that a bit just so it covers the whole sort of look of the text. Like that. And I'm also just going to turn down the Y value to say a 0.3, something like that. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to set the lamp of the color to sort of a deep orange color like that. And I'm going to change the distance to really small because we want it to sort of fade off as it gets towards the front of the text there. Now the energy value I'm going to increase really high to a 9.5. And what we want some soft shadows thrown over the whole text. So if we enable ray shadow there, and under these sampling options, you've got choices there where you can increase the samples along one edge there. Now, there's weird noises going on in my apartment here. Some guy coughing next door is throwing me off. Sorry about that. Yeah, yeah. If we increase the samples to the X value, because you'll notice that here along the size X, it's a lot bigger than the size of the Y axis. So we're going to increase the samples for the X in correlation to the size, if that makes sense. So something like that. Just sort of let's have a look at how that looks when we render it. So we should get some sort of nice soft shadows thrown across the text. There you go. So that's it's looking fairly consistent with the font. What I'm going to do now, one thing to other note is we also need to enable this layer only because we don't want that lamp to apply to the big numbers, the two big digits in the background. So I'm going to duplicate that lamp now, rotate it by 180 degrees. Now I'm going to increase the distance of it to let's say 1.6. We want it to affect more of the text, so it's thrown up a little bit more. And I'm going to turn the energy value down. And I'm going to set it to a light blue color, like a sort of sky blue like that. It's looking pretty good. And we can leave all those settings the same now. Let's have a look at how this looks. Should get some a nice soft blow thrown across it. There we go. So that's looking pretty good so far. Now, as I explained at the beginning, we want to sort of get like an underglow look where it's quite hard to achieve in Blender, so I'll show you a tip for that later. But just to get some sort of basic lighting thrown in from the sides, what we're going to do is we're going to add 2 area lamps on both sides of it. So let's duplicate that lamp there, rotate it by 90 degrees, and for the area shape, I'm going to set that to square. We don't want it that big. That is way too big for the lamp. I'm going to change it to, let's say, 1.5. And I'm going to increase the distance because we want this light to be thrown across the entire length of the logo there. Now I'm going to place this underneath the text like that and just rotate it upwards like so. Maybe just a little bit less, maybe about there. That should be pretty good. And turn down the energy for that to, let's say, 0.2 value because it's going to be fairly bright because of how big the distance is. Yeah, you just need to turn it down into in correlation to that. Now let's have a look. Let's duplicate that lamp, I should say, and make one on the other side because we want to get lighting thrown in from both sides. That's why we're doing that. One thing to note, if we select shift select the other lamp and then press Control L object data, what that'll do now is it'll make a little number appear next to the lamp name, and that means if you change a setting on one of them, it's now going to be changed on the other one. So that's a quick tip there for you guys. 0.6, there we go. Alright, let's have a look at how that looks now when that is rendered. I just realized I've got the samples for those 2 side lightings way up, so that's going to take a bit long to render. I'll turn the samples down to a 4. Let's have a look now. But yeah, that is pretty much the basis of the lighting now is finished. You will note with the finished, with the actual logo itself, you've got sort of like a specularity look to the front of the text, so like along that beveled line there. That is really, I found very difficult to achieve that effect in Blender, to like with actual lamps, because basically if you have a look at the actual logo, you've got that speck sort of look across all of the letters evenly, and that's really hard to achieve in Blender. So I'm going to show you a trick for that using materials to get that same look. All right, so that is the lamp setup for the main text there. If we turn on the second layer there, you can see I've sneakily already added a lamp setup for those other big digits there in the background. It's pretty much the same as this one here. You've got sort of these blue lamps thrown in from the side there, and you've also got these 2 orange lamps up there, sort of positioned a little bit differently, but that's fairly straightforward. I'm sure you guys won't have any troubles with that. If you do, you can always download the finished.blend from Blender Guru. But there you go. So what we're going to move on to now is the materials. Alright, now before you add any materials at all, the first thing you need to do is actually UV unwrap each letter. So to do that, we're going to split the window into UV image editor, like so. And then basically with the letter selected, we're going to hit tab and then select project from view. And then basically you just need to scale that letter up until it fits this little grid, I don't know, picture there. And yeah, that's basically it. So you need to go through and do that for each letter, as I have already done here. It's fairly easy. The reason I haven't made each, made this one solid object and just done it as a whole is because, as I said, each object has their own little subsurf. Some of them don't. So to keep things easy, I've just done them individually. Now, if you wanted to do it even better, you can actually create seams. So on like the end pieces where the texture would actually be broken up, you can create a seam there and another seam here. And then if you did that, you'd just select U and then select unwrap. And then basically the texture would be broken up as is. I don't think I did that for each of my letters. I think I was a bit lazy. But yeah, that can add just slightly a little bit more realism. But anyway, that's it for the UV unwrapping. We can now go and add our first material. Now we're going to set the specularity for that to 0. We don't actually need any specularity for this image. You can leave every other setting on the materials page as is. Flip over now to the texture side. We're going to add an image texture. Okay. Now this image is one that I grabbed off cgtextures.com and it is called Metal Bear 98. I'll provide a link to it underneath this video if you want to download it. Now what I'm going to do first of all is increase the contrast to 2. You can see what effect that's had up there in the little preview window there. That'll basically just bring out the just basically make it more contrasty and look more metallic. So that's what we're going to do there. I'm also going to obviously enable UV so that it'll use that UV unwrapping we did earlier. Now you can leave, pretty much leave everything else as is. The one thing you might want to do is decrease the filter size of the image texture to 0.5. The lower you make that, actually if you look up there in the preview window you can see what I'm doing, but that filter size will define how blurry to make the texture essentially. So the lower you make that, the more crispy your textures are going to look, but you can get anti-aliasing issues if you set that too low. So, but anyway, 0.5 seems to work okay. Alright, so that is pretty much, that's the base of the material done. Before I render, I'm just going to shift select every other letter that I've got here. Just like this. So shift right click, as I'm doing. And then select that object again. Press Ctrl L and select materials. And that will make every single letter there use the same material. Alright, so let's render it now and see how that looks. So this is just with the base color material with the lighting that we've already got there. So you can see there just from that preview that it's looking fairly realistic to the original result there. So looking very metallic. It's got little scratches and things like that on it. So it does look, yeah, pretty close to the original. Alright, so the next thing we're going to add is that that trick I told you I was going to tell you about. It's how to give that sort of glow lighting where it looks like there's lighting from behind the object, as well as at the same time showing you how to make the tips or the top of the text actually have that white look, so it looks like there's a specularity. Okay, so to do that, we're going to fake all that by adding a blend texture. Okay, so this will basically allow us to add a gradient on the object. Okay, so to do this, what we're going to do, we're going to enable vertical, and the big one you need to note is here in the mapping panel. We need to turn off X and Z and change the Y mapping to Z. Okay, I'm not sure of like the implications on why that order, but that's the one that works. Yeah, so if you ever have problems with like blend mapping or anything like that, and you know this gradient thing not working, you just need to adjust those settings there till you find one that works. Anyway, so we're going to enable a color ramp, and what this will allow us to do is, as you can see here in this this little preview window there, it's allowing us to change essentially where we're going to want this glow coming from. So on the left-hand side, that is basically the bottom of the... Whoa, let's have a look. That's the bottom of that object there, okay? And then obviously over on the right-hand side, that defines how where the gradient will sit along the top. Hopefully that makes sense. I'll show you now anyway. So we're going to start with that blue glow from underneath the object, okay? So obviously we're going to change this point here to a light blue like that, okay? And then where you put this next point, that's going to tell you where or how far that glow is going to reach up the actual object. I'm going to set this this point, even though it's completely alpha mapped, to the same color as that one there. So there we go. That's pretty good. Now, for the tip, as in, or not the tip, the how do you say it? The top part where there's that that white specularity area. We're just basically going to add a new control point, putting it on the right hand side. Change the color for that to white, as such. And I'm going to add another control point, and we're going to place these really close together. And this is going to be obviously, whoa. We're supposed to see that, but yeah, this is supposed to basically that's going to imitate how that that specularity there is going to look. All right, so let's have a look. So we're going to set the alpha value to the far right hand point to a completely solid white alpha value, and that one we're going to set to white again, but an alpha value of 0. Now we're going to put these, as I said, really close together. So I'm going to set the far right point to a 0.983, and this 0.2, I'm going to change that to, say, 0.98. So as you can see in this preview window there, they're very close together. There's not much gradient at all. But now, actually no, we do need to do something else. In the influence panel, we're going to turn on emit, okay? Now let's have a look at what that looks like when we render it. So we should see, if we've done it right, glow coming from the bottom, and a white layer on top. And as you can see, that's exactly what's happened. However, it's incredibly bright as is. So what we're going to do is turn down the emit value to 0.6 and the color value to, say, a 0.4, okay? And now let's have a look at that again once it's rendered. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. We will brighten it up a little bit, make a few changes in the compositor at the end, but that's looking fairly consistent. And yeah, we can leave that as is. Now, I've already done, again, pretty sneaky, but I've already used that same material for these back two big digit things, whatever you want to call them. So yeah, so that's all done. The only thing we need to do now, before we get into the compositing, doing cool things there, is I'm going to show you how to get that smoky background look, okay? We're going to do that completely with procedural textures. So first of all, we're going to add a plane object, okay? And make sure that it covers the complete view of the camera, like that. And just place it underneath the those big digits there, okay? I'm not sure if digits is the right word. It feels weird to say that, but anyway. Alright, we're going to add a material for this plane. We're going to make it completely solid black and no specularity. Now switch to the texture panel. And for that smoky texture, we're going to use a distorted noise. We're going to set the basis for it to Veroni F1 and the improved Perlin as the noise distortion. Don't ask me why. I just did a lot of experimenting, and those are the settings that worked. That's what, just looking, off the original logo, that sort of distorted noise texture there is pretty much what's going on in the background here for the original logo. Although I think they must have used a probably an actual smoke photo off the internet or something like that. But yeah, this is pretty close. Alright, we're going to set the size of it to a 0.06. Excuse me while I get a drink of water. Sorry about that. Okay, there we go. Alright, we're going to change the brightness for this texture to a 0.8, just so we get rid of that sort of grayish sort of area where it might be there. And we're going to increase the contrast to a 1.6. Okay, so that'll just make it more bold, and you'll see those more defined blue lines, which is what the kind of effect that we're going for. We're going to turn the emit value to 2. You can only do that by typing it in. Normally, the maximum you can go is to 1, but if you type in 2, then there you go, it works. Don't know why it's done like that, but it's the way it is. I'm going to enable RGB to intensity and change the color to a light blue. So let's have a look at that, just the texture on its own, see how that looks in contrast to our lettering that we've done. So you should see like some really electric blue sort of things coming out of it, and that's pretty much what we've got. So that's it's looking pretty good. The only problem is that text is now applied to the entire background, which obviously we don't want. So to get around that, what we're going to do is add a new material, place it above the smoke texture, and we're going to use the blend type texture again. Okay, we're going to use this as a mask. Okay, so I'll just enable, say, both so we can see what's going on. Now we're going to set the blend type to quadratic sphere. Okay, and now if we go down here, we're going to turn off the influence. We don't want any influence at all. All we want to do is check stencil, and that will use it as a mask, as I said. Now for the let's see, the color band, I'm going to set just change that left control point there way down to about there, and that will it won't, basically the more you make that out, the wider the gradient is going to be, and the more smoky electricity bolts you're going to see. So if we just bring that right in, then you're only going to see it really behind those two big digits there in the background. So that's what we want. So that's what we're going to leave it as. All right, so let's take a look at how that looks when rendered. Now that should look pretty good. We might need to adjust the color ramp depending on the result we get, but I think that's it's looking pretty good. I might just bring that in a little bit. The other thing you might want to do is just increase the size of the plane along the y-axis, as I have done there, and that will stretch out that texture so that it's more going vertically, and you can see it's stretched out a little bit more vertically than it is horizontally. That's pretty much the sort of effect we want. So there you go. That's pretty much how to add that cool little smoky texture there in the background. Now we're going to move on to the compositing. So we're coming up to the end of the tutorial now. The compositing, because we've got 3 different elements here. Okay, we've got this lettering, got these big digits, if that's what they're called, and again you've got that smoky background. So we want to apply different effects and things to each of those individually without them affecting the other. So to do that, we're going to need to use render layers. So the first render layer that we're going to use is for the main letters here. So we're just going to change this default render layer here, just going to call it letters. We're going to add another render layer, and this one we're going to call digits, and the last render layer we're going to add, we're going to call, let's call it smoky. There you go. All right, now, so we've got the letters already are on layer 1. On layer 2, we should just have that. So we're going to have to move the background layer to layer 3, like that. So now, with the letters there selected, we can just select from this layer type. So we're only going to be rendering Blender's layer 1 into this render layer. The digits layer, we're going to use layer 2, and the smoky layer, we're going to use layer 3. So when you go through it, it should just look like that. There you go. Now, once you've arranged it into separate render layers, you do need to re-render the project, and that will basically distribute the elements as you defined there, and that will basically, it will look the way it should look after that. So let's have a look at once it's finished rendering. Okay, so all you can see is just the layer, the render layer that you had selected there. That's because it hasn't actually composited anything yet, so you can only see one render layer there. So we need to switch now to the compositor. Easiest way to do that, press Control, left arrow. Okay, and I'm just going to move those. There we go. Now select Use Nodes from the type there, and you can see the default layer type we've got there is letters. Now we're going to duplicate that 3 times for each render layer, as is, like that. Okay, so now we've got that there, we can now start doing things to each of those elements without them affecting the other. So the first thing I want to do is to add a shadow to the words. So to show you what I mean, if you have a look at the original logo, let me just pull it up. There we go. You can see that where the words are over the top of those numerical values in the background there, the digits, as I said, they've got like a darkened shadow around it, and that just helps separate the letters from the background. So that's something important that we need to incorporate into our design. Otherwise, what you get is, let's just see, if we just add alpha over value here like this, I'll just show you what it looks like, just so you can see what we're doing. Not like that. But yeah, so you can see there's no sort of line there to sort of separate the elements. It doesn't look very good at all. So we're going to fake that right now. Now the way we do this is we basically need to, just with this, this letters layer selected, if we add a, where is it, converter, RGB to black and white, that will convert those letters there, that entire layer, into a black and white format, okay? And then, if we add an invert node, let's have a look at how that looks. That will then invert that so that we've now got a white background on black text, okay? So you can sort of have a clue at what we're doing now. If we add an RGB curves node, let's have a look with the viewer node. And if we set this black value to something like that, maybe just make this even more. The more you make that, the darker that text there is going to get. Just a little tip there for you. There you go. Okay. So now we've got really, really black looking text. We've exaggerated how black it is. And now, finally, we're going to add a blur node. Going to set it to fast Gaussian and set the amount to say 30. There you go. Now you've got these weird sort of blown out areas there, but that doesn't matter because the actual text is going to be in front of that. But yeah, you've got this darkened sort of shadowy area behind it, which is the effect that we want. Now, all we need to do is add a mix node, connect the output from the digits layer into the top portion of the mix node, and this output from the blur node there like that, and set the blend type to multiply and the FAC value to 1, and there you go. You've now got that darkened shadowy look showing up behind the letters there, which is what we want. If we turn that down, we can exaggerate it even more, as I've just done. Oh, that's way too much. There we go. Maybe set that to 30, maybe 40. I'm not sure. Experiment with what works. Okay, so that's looking fairly good. And now, to show you what it looks like, if we add this alpha over node, like we did originally, if we've done it right, you should then... No, we haven't done it right. Flip it over. There we go. No, that's not right either. Hang on. Sorry, from the original render layer there to the output of that. I think that's how it should... No, other way around. Okay, there we go. I know what I'm doing. Okay, so now that those letters are now over the top of those digits in the background, so they're more defined, it's easier to see them, etc. So that's sort of the effect we want to go for. There we go, it's even better. Alright, so now what we're going to do is composite that with our smoky background layer. But before we do that, what we want to do is apply a glow effect, okay? Because if we have a look at just that smoke there, it's not very good. Yeah, it's just very boring looking smoke. So we're going to add a glow effect. So add a blur node, then a mix node, set the blend type to add, connect it to the original render layer like that, and we're going to set the blur amount to, let's say, 80, and you can see what it's done there. It's now giving it that glow effect over the top of it. And let's set the add amount to 1. Okay, let's see how that looks. If we just duplicate that alpha over node there like that, composite it as such. And there you go. Now you've got a nice sort of glow effect there. We can increase that amount of glow if you like to something like that. And maybe increase the add amount so you can see the glow a bit more. Or, if you want to be fancy, you can add an RGB curve. And just increase both of them like that. That might look a little bit better. But yeah, you can experiment with that. Make it more blue if you want. Less blue. It's up to you. There you go. So, alright. Now, the other thing you might want to do, this is optional. We can apply some effects to the, let's see, the output from these two, to basically sharpen it up, okay? Because at the moment, it's looking very smooth. The textures there aren't looking that pronounced. They're not standing out that much. So to fix that, what we can do, as I said, is add a sharpen node. So just, we add filter. The node is actually called filter, and then you change the type to sharpen. So if you have a look at how that looks there, that's at maximum. But if we set this to say 0.2, you can see that it really grunges up the texture a bit and really highlights the areas that that need to be sharpened really. And that just sort of helps with the overall image. The other thing that I did for mine is, and I definitely recommend you do for yours, a big helper, add a color balance node and just play with the colors and try and get it as close to the original as possible. So if we just increase this, the blown out, the white value there, maybe decrease, no, that's a bit much, like that. Maybe set it a bit blue, something like that. You can experiment with what works, what doesn't. But there you go. So that is essentially how to replicate the Starcraft logo in Blender 2.5. My tutorial result doesn't look exactly the same as my original one, but it's close enough anyway. So that one there is the finished result. If you apply a bit more tinkering and things like that, that's the sort of effect you can get when you compare it to the original, as I said at the beginning. But there you go. So I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial and you've got something from it. Hope it's been fun for you. One thing to note, as an important note, I've been doing weekly tutorials for about 3 months now. To note, there will not be a tutorial next week. Now the reason for that is, as I said at the beginning, I'm in Korea at the moment visiting my girlfriend. I have to go back home to Australia in a week's time, so I'd rather not spend my last week with my girlfriend sitting there on Blender. So I'm actually going to be taking the week off, so you will not see a tutorial on Blender Guru next week, sorry to say. However, in its place there will be something else posted, so I'll reveal a little bit more about that obviously next week, but it'll be a free gift to you guys. So there will be something there next Tuesday for you, so by all means come back to visit it. But anyway, there you go. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. That's all from me. Thanks for watching.